How regular interaction with ETs will alter your reality. What are the possibilities and also the limitations of interdimensional communications? Hi, this is Mahadev the Thunder Wizard, and in this video I am going to go over at least my experience up till this point of making this video of what I've learned from daily interaction and communications with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings. I'm going to tell you the absolutely, some of the mind-blowing things that will happen to you as you regularly interact with them. But I'll also tell you some of the limitations that you might find frustrating. And we'll just see where it goes. It's absolutely mind-blowing. All right, this is the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. And as you know, this channel is about giving you practical tools to completely transform your life in whatever area you want to transform your life in. Ultimately, to give you the ability to make the decision to shift up to 5D and to help this planet completely shift up. Talking is great, but we live in a universe of vibration and energy. The way to change yourself is to literally start changing yourself from the cellular level, from your vibrational level, and that's where it starts. And once you have the ability to do that, then you can start changing all kinds of other things. All right, so if you want to get started with that, you want to take complete control over what you do so that you're not waiting around for the solar flash to come or the shift to come. You're not waiting around. Great. Go ahead and do what I do. Take daily action. Go up here to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. That will give you access to the most powerful energy meditative course you can find anywhere. And you will also have access to the Interdimensional Meditation course, which is my techniques on how I take control of reaching out and connecting with higher dimensional beings. And of course, courses.thunderwizard.com. Go check all those out. All right, let's get back to the video here. So, how regular interaction with ETs will alter your reality. What are the possibilities and limitations of interdimensional communications? Regular interactions is the operative phrase here. Doing it once, doing it a couple times, it might be life-changing. This is kind of what happens when people take psychedelics. You know, if they go into ayahuasca or whatever psychedelic they choose to do, they might have a life-changing experience. And maybe it'll result in change, maybe it won't. I'll give you two examples. I have a friend, I haven't spoken with him in a while, but somebody that I have known most of my life, and he talked about, this was years ago before I knew any of the stuff, a lot of the stuff I know now about higher dimensions. He did some kind of very powerful hallucinogen, and he said, it totally changed my life. But the problem was that his life was a mess. So he did it once, it changed his life. Maybe it gave him a new perspective, but my thought was, his life is still a mess, so what difference does it make? There was another woman when I myself have never done psychedelics except, whatever I did when I was a teenager in my, my drug phase. But since then I haven't, and that's because I haven't needed to, because I do things like the 90-day challenge, the Maoshan practice. Those things are far more powerful than any external chemical that I could ingest. So I have had no need to do it. But a few years back, I wanted to hear more about people's experience with ayahuasca, and I was listening to some woman who had done ayahuasca something like 36 times, if I'm remembering correctly. And she, did it properly. She went to one of these South American things and, went through the ritual and all of that, and had a lot of experience, but she never was able to heal. And we'll talk about this, hopefully we'll get to this. She was never able to heal the illness she was hoping that it would heal. So I prefer everything to be proactive. So interdimensional meditation is a proactive way for you to initiate transforming yourself on every level. And it has to be something, in my experience, at least for me, that you do on a regular basis. So let's get right into it. I've got my list here, which I'm going to read from. So I'm going to start with some of the things that you can do. So I'm going to limit it to so far, but let me just be clear. I'm perfectly comfortable with the idea of being mistaken or having an incomplete understanding about all of this. So as always, if my experience changes, I will tell you. I will come on to this channel and I will tell you where I'm wrong. But right now I'm going to share with you what I've learned I can and cannot accomplish with interacting with higher dimensional beings. And I'll also tell you some of the potential pitfalls. But let's start with what you can accomplish. This is not an exhaustive list. There's certainly many more things to be discovered, but this is what I've discovered so far. Again, I have been in constant interaction with higher dimensional beings since June of 2022. Every single day I went through an unbelievably mind-blowing shamanic initiation, which lasted, well, it's still going on technically, but the most intense part lasted probably 3 months. And it was, I almost lost my sanity, which is good because the parts of my sanity I lost were the parts that were trapped in 3D anyway, so that's fine. So let's talk about what I've learned that you can do. The first thing that you will experience when you do interdimensional meditation, or also known as CE5, is you will experience unconditional love. Now, I make the difference between what I call interdimensional meditation and what a lot of people are calling CE5, which is Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. They both share the same thing in that it's human-initiated contact with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings. But my experience, looking at the Facebook groups of CE5, is that there's a huge number of CE5 people who think that CE5 is limited to looking at spaceships, and that's why they do it. So a lot of people want to try it out and they'll say, I've been doing it, but nothing happened. Or I did it and it worked for a while, but now nothing happened. But then as you read, they'll go, but I also do feel an intense love during it. And then I want to say, what do you mean nothing happened? So the first thing that will happen for you when you reach out to higher dimensional beings is you will experience absolute, total, complete, unconditional love. Now, you could have two people sitting next to each other who will do CE5 or interdimensional meditation, and one of them will have an absolutely mind-blowing experience where their whole reality shifts and they feel this incredible love flowing deeply in them on the deepest level, and there will be somebody sitting next to them who won't feel anything. What is the difference? I believe the difference is that the person who doesn't experience anything is really actually emotionally guarded. So they may actually have some wound or some trauma, or they may actually be not allowing themselves to experience the love that is coming to them. So it's got to be something, it's a two-way street. The first time I did CE5, I've got it on video. Go watch the video where it's entitled How I Became an Extraterrestrial. Go watch that. Because the first time that I did CE5, I caught some lights on the camera, but I experienced nothing. I talked myself out of it, even though I saw some strange things and I caught some things. I caught a voice on my audio, and I caught a light that I didn't see when I was there, an orb. And there were other lights down the beach that I didn't put on video, but I saw that were crazy. But I talked myself out of it. I did the second CE5, and again, nothing happened, or so I thought. I did have this sort of experience when I was out there vectoring, And I had this imaginatory experience where I communicated with something, but it was so felt so much like my own imagination that I talked myself out of it. But during that interaction, the being that I met, and I invited, I said, "Do you want to come and interact with me?" And the being said, "We can't. You're too guarded. You're too emotionally guarded. We can't get through to you. But we're going to send somebody to you who can break through. We're going to send in the big guns. They'll be able to break through." And so after that, I just, because again, the experience of it, you can't tell if it's your imagination or did I see something, did I have a communication. And this again is why they come and do the light show. They do the light show to prove to you, or if they take over your radio, to prove to you that it's a real thing. You're not making it up. But my experience is once they establish that, and they've shown themselves that they are real, they want to encourage you to do the personal, telepathic, meditative communication. That's what they want from you. And so a lot of people who say, "I had an experience the first time, but then nothing since," well, it's because they're not taking the invitation. So the invitation goes both ways. Let's be clear. ETs are not trained monkeys. They're not butlers. They're not here just to entertain us. They will do what they have to do to get your attention, to open you up to the phenomenon. And as I'm sitting here talking about it, I'm getting a wave of them saying, "Yes, that's it." They will do whatever they need to do to get your 3D attention. But then you must respond to their invitation to go to their house. It's sort of like, if you live on the other side of town and you invite somebody to come visit you and they come over to visit you, and then your definition of hanging out with that person is that they always come over to your house. They're going to say, "Hey, why don't you come to my house? Why don't you come hang out with me?" And then they might say, "You know what, it's just a long drive." It's not the same, but with ETs, they're much more interested in you evolving than they are in lowering themselves into your vibration of 3D. So the first thing that will happen is this unconditional love, which you have to choose to accept. You have to be a part of that. So this experience, if you continue, what will happen is you will start to heal from deep traumas. This unconditional love, in my experience, is the most difficult thing for human beings to experience. And that's because we live in a devalued, three-dimensional society. We've all been devalued. We've been trained to operate from devaluation. And so the ETs will never devalue you. But for somebody who's been traumatized, somebody who lived in a narcissistic household or was abused in any way, what happens, and just humans in general, what happens is being loved unconditionally is a very traumatic experience. It's very frightening. This is why when you fall in love, one of the first things that happens is you get really scared. You say, "I'm really falling for you. I'm really scared." And the other person says, "That's okay. I'm scared too." And you learn to go deeper into it. You learn to trust. So you will overcome a lot of trauma, but be prepared that being completely loved unconditionally might create some fear or some trauma on you. This is why a lot of people, when it comes to ETs, they love talking about how there's this danger. And I tell people when they're doing the vectoring meditations, if they want to, they can go ahead and say, "Are there any light beings out there who love me and only want what's best for me?" If you want to say that phrase, go right ahead, but you're repeating yourself. Because the truth is, once you get out of 3D, there's no such thing as any kind of neutral or evil beings. Sorry. People really want to hold on to that. In fact, when I tell people that, you would think they would go, "Oh, really? Oh, thank God, I feel so much better." Instead, they go, "No, that's not true." And they hold on. They're attached to this idea that there are evil beings out there. That is a projection. That means that you're still attached to your abusive parents. You're still attached to your abusive 3D society. You want the love and approval of people who really are destructive, narcissistic, and evil. And so you can't tolerate the thought that once you escape out of 3D, there's nobody out there that wants to hurt you. And in your mind, you've confused abuse with love. So this is why people are constantly, projecting that there are evil reptilians out there trying to control the world, and that aliens are coming to cause you harm. And this is why the fake alien abduction deep state psyop works, is because people want to believe that higher dimensional beings are evil and abusive. But I'm here to tell you that they're not. So when you interact with ETs, you will overcome trauma. That means you have to face it. That's something that's just a reality. Now, when you interact with ETs, you will begin to slowly overcome your devaluation programming. So again, you are devalued. This is another way of saying abused. Abuse is nothing less than devaluing. Whenever you abuse somebody, you are devaluing them. ETs are only interested in increasing your value because they see you as you are. They see you in your higher dimensional form, which is a being of light. You are perfect and infinite and powerful and amazing and wonderful. And they see you that way. So they will come to you, and if you let them, they will overwhelm you with all kinds of positive messages about how amazing and how wonderful and how important and how valuable you are. So it's the opposite of your devaluation programming. You will begin to overcome that if you continue to interact with them. My experience was almost from the beginning. I was speaking with my dead relatives. Now I'm going to be 60 in a few months. So, a lot, all of my family members are dead. They're all dead. So my interactions with them, they brought to me dead family members, my fiance who passed away. All of those souls came to me. Like the ETs had the power to bring along these people who had all kinds of messages for me, and I was able to work through all kinds of trauma, erase all kinds of multiple lifetime trauma. Like with my mom, we had multiple lifetime trauma. Part of the reason that my mom and I, had such a destructive experience when she was alive was because in a past life, I had been a destructive parent to her. So in this life, she was the parent. And so, bless her heart, she was trying in this life to connect with me and resolve that. But of course, it was coming from her pain. So she was destructive. So we worked through all of that. And, she's now one of my most supportive light beings that comes to me quite often. So it's very strange. You wouldn't think that, but this changes the nature of ETs. They're not just these other beings on other planets that the government is trying to tell you. They just recently said the government, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon has said, we've detected this mothership, and so aliens might be coming to Earth. I mean, that's a lie. The idea that they're these other beings from other planets and they've just showed up and they're not like us, they're a little different, but they don't know who we are. That's all a lie. Extraterrestrials that are coming to Earth are higher dimensional beings that are identical in nature to you in terms of their spirit and their soul, and they know you. They've had past lives with you. You've lived on other planets. They've lived on Earth. You've known them. They are the guides, the angels. That's what they are. They're not these strange beings. So, but what I found strange is that these beings are angels, because that's what you would say. Look, you could say an angel brought to me the soul of my mother. That makes sense to our 3D brain. But an extraterrestrial in a higher dimensional form brought the soul of my mother to me? That sounds strange, but that's the reality that we're dealing with. The ETs are peeling back the layers of, the veil between our dimension and higher dimensions. And now we're seeing who the angels really are. They're souls in higher dimensions, sometimes in other higher dimensional physical bodies, which we would call extraterrestrial. But they have the ability to bring, connect. They're not separated, between spiritual and physical. They can go back and forth, and they can bring souls to you. That's how powerful these beings are. And so that, among other things, what will happen is you will start to erase your past programming. This is one of the most powerful, and this is one of the things that they want from you. They want to erase your past programming. This is why, after a while, doing CE5, just looking for spaceships, gets old and it stops working, is because just, giving you the same show over and over again won't necessarily take you out of your 3D programming. So in order to erase that, you have to come to the understanding that 3D is an illusion. It's a dream. It's a very dense dream. And once you're in it, just like when you have a normal dream, you think you're in the dream, you forget who you are, and you believe the dream that you're going through. That's what's happening in 3D. So these beings want to pull you out of that. And so in order to do that, you have to erase past programming, which includes your understanding of this reality. That's what the Mandela effect is really about. It's something that ETs and our future human selves have done in order to literally change the past, so that when we experience it, we realize that reality is not what we thought. Now, the biggest one that for me, which I think is probably true for everybody else, is to, when you work with ETs, you communicate with them, they will help you understand the nature of the quantum universe. And the quote that I was told, "You are a probability." So to understand that being human in the third dimension, and actually being manifest in any dimension, this is true, but especially in the 3D, being in the 3D means that you are a probability. Means that any given moment you have the ability to change, but you have to shift out of your 3D understanding, which is what the 90-day challenge is about, is to help you get the power to shift out of your fixed, the illusion of the fixed 3D reality, to shift out of that and realize that you can shift from one probability to another reality. You have to completely shift yourself. So you will start to understand that, and you will start to understand and take more responsibility for your manifested reality. You are a probability. This is what the law of attraction is trying to teach you. In my experience, very superficial and limited, and in a lot of ways incorrect. But the one thing that's accurate is that you are a vibration, and you can shift that vibration. And when you do that, you become a different being, and you manifest in a different way. This is all that healing is. You shift from one probability to another. In higher dimensions, there are infinite numbers of possibilities. There are infinite numbers of probable states. And in one probable state, you are sick and miserable, and in another one, you are completely healthy and happy and prosperous. You are the one that shifts from one probability to another. You don't attract wealth to you. You manifest yourself as a wealthy person. It's completely different. The responsibility changes. The law of attraction has limited responsibility. You're passive. You're waiting for something to come to you. Whereas as a probability, you yourself take full responsibility, and you shift yourself, which shifts your reality around you. If you continue to interact with ET, at least according to my experience, this is of course, all of this is my experience. You might have different experiences than me, but this has been my experience. You can start downloading higher versions of yourself into you. I remember the first time it happened, I actually felt it. I actually felt a higher version of me come down through my crown chakra into my body. I didn't become another person. I just became more authentically myself. The 3D version is like a picture that's been copied over and over and over again on a copier machine. It starts to lose, the resolution starts to get worse and worse. So when you download higher versions of yourself, you actually become more and more yourself. The picture becomes more and more clear and vibrant. You become more yourself, and a lot of the negative things drop away. It's one thing that's definitely I've experienced. I'm still myself. I still have, my buttons, and I still have my limitations. But one of the things that's changed is that I am much friendlier. out in public, and I'm much more compassionate, and I'm much more patient. I still, like I said, I still have my limitations, but I sense it when I'm out in public and I'm dealing just with the person on the other side of the counter at the grocery store. I'm much kinder and much more compassionate, and it's normally and it's not I'm not doing anything different. I'm not putting anything on. It's coming from within me. So this is, I believe, because I'm downloading higher versions of myself, more authentic, more deeply me than I've ever been. So this is one of the things that will happen as a result of interacting with higher dimensional beings. And this, again, it's your choice. You choose to interact with them. It's a two-way street. You will, if you're like me, you'll be able to start traveling the multiverse. I can't even tell you how many different dimensions I've been to. Some of them I've gone looking for, and some of them, I show up in my astral body, and there will be a light being waiting for me, and they'll say, "We want to show you something." And they will just follow me, and I'll get in there. If they have a ship, I'll get in their ship, or sometimes it's just our energies, and we will fly through the universe, and they'll take me through black holes, and like the universe will sort of split open and we'll go into higher dimensions. A lot of times there's this going through these tunnels that go down and up and around, and and you pop up in some place. That's just been my experience, and that's one of the really crazy and wonderful things about it. So you might have that too. Working with ETs, you will have personal communion with different dimensions. This isn't something that's very easy to put into words, but I've been to different dimensions and communed with beings of higher dimensions in so many different ways. And, I'll just leave that for you. I mean, I could tell you all the stuff I've gone through, but to be honest, I'm still processing a lot of it. But experiencing and communing on other dimensional levels is, besides there being different dimensions, within each dimension there are different worlds. Just like in our universe, there are different planets. There are different worlds within each dimension. And anyways, it's an amazing multiverse we live in. So you'll get to have your experience of that. One of the fundamental things that will definitely happen especially if you have physical contact with an extraterrestrial, is the Kundalini in your body will be stimulated and will rise. Now, you don't have to have physical contact with them, because they are capable of interacting with you energetically, even if it's from their perspective on a mental level or on a astral body level, an energy body level. They can, once just interacting with them will raise your Kundalini. You'll get the benefit of years and years and years of, regular Kundalini yoga or deep meditation. And one of the most beautiful things is that there will be a healing of your body. We'll talk about that, because sometimes you'll interact with them and you won't get certain healings. And there's a reason for that, which I'll get into when we look at the pitfalls and the limitations of it. So the healing of the body comes from your let me get to the most fundamental. I'm feeling, led to talk about the most fundamental healing. Healing of the body comes from you loving yourself. When you are in a true state of complete love of yourself, you cannot have illness. The two can't exist. So if you have illness of any kind, this isn't I'm not a victim, I'm not blaming you, it's not your fault, etc., but it's still true. If you have illness of any kind, it means that there's some self-hatred, which is lack of self-acceptance, self-devaluation. Bear in mind that devaluation programming goes very, very deep into your unconscious, into your nervous system, into the cells of your body, and your body responds to that command. It will manifest your self-hatred, any kind of negative feelings you have towards yourself. By the way, you can't have negative feelings towards others without having negative feelings towards yourself. So if you have a lot of anger and resentment about what the world has done to you, that is also a reflection of how you feel about yourself. So this does need to get healed, and when you heal that, the body will heal. But some people will get healings of, physical healings of all kinds, different ways. There's stories of people getting, their eyesight back, getting at least I've heard of getting your hearing back. I'm assuming eyesight as well. I don't know that for a fact, but I imagine it is possible. So you'll have your own experience with that. All right, so now let's talk about things that I've learned that you cannot accomplish with communicating with higher dimensional beings. Now, again, this is my experience, and this isn't an exhaustive or limiting list in any way. All right, what I have not been able to do, I should maybe say it that way. So the one thing that working with ETs will do is that it will not boost your 3D narcissistic ego. So, even though I say I have daily, I did it before I came here. I was having communication with higher dimensional beings before I made this video. And so it's on a daily basis. There hasn't been one day that I can remember. Maybe not, but I don't think so. There hasn't been one day since this started where I haven't had a daily communication or a daily energetic interaction with some aspect of higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings. But it will definitely not boost your narcissistic ego. In fact, you can't interact with higher dimensional beings without it damaging and destroying your narcissism, which is a good thing. It destroys your narcissism, which is why it's so traumatic, because our narcissism is part of our 3D self-protection mechanism. And so when you interact with higher dimensional beings, your narcissism is going to take a hit. When somebody loves you unconditionally, your narcissism takes a hit. It's different from what narcissists want. Narcissists want to be worshipped, which is actually being devalued. When somebody worships you, they're devaluing you. Now, that's a whole other, I could take a whole 2 hours to talk about that. But, the way that Jehovah wants to be worshipped, where you get on your knees and you're nothing and he's everything, it's actually devaluing to him, because you're saying, I don't love you for who you are. I'm afraid of you, which is devaluing. So when you're loved unconditionally, your narcissistic ego will definitely take a hit, and it could be challenging and traumatic, but that's okay. It's getting rid of something you don't need. What you can't do is you can't use ETs as butlers. They're not trained monkeys. This is why, again, people who like to do CE5 and only are looking for something in the sky. There are people that just spend all day looking in the sky, hoping to find a craft. And again, everybody's where they're at, but they don't understand. There's a fundamental misunderstanding of what's happening here. So you can't, use ETs, do this for me, do that for me, make me this, make me that. You can't do that. And I know, because I've tried. So, listen, I've been shameless about this. I didn't know what all of this was. The universe was completely changing. So I've been asking all kinds of questions, and I've been trying everything, that comes to my mind about, maybe I can accomplish this, maybe I can do that. But the one thing I've found is that they're not butlers. They're not here to just do whatever you command. And that includes show up in the sky and give me a light show. That's what they will do is they will always show up on some level. And I'm getting a confirmation here. They will always show up on some level, but they may not do it in the way that you demand. So ETs are not trained monkeys. They're not butlers. Here's something that I've learned. You can't you can't use ETs to get rich. Now, that doesn't mean you won't become rich as a result of it. It doesn't mean that you won't become more prosperous, because you will. If you interact with ETs, you will become more prosperous, but it will be a natural result of you shifting and changing into your best version of yourself. And every single person that's incarnated has a destiny. In their highest self, they are destined to be prosperous. It means having all of the resources. If that includes, at the moment, we live in a world that has this thing called money, which is this made up, nonsensical pretend thing, but it functions as a resource for us. So if you are at your best self, you'll have resources, and if that means you need money to function, you'll have no shortage of it. I mean, since I'm pushing myself to a higher level, the past week or so, my income has started rising again. And it's simply because I'm in an expansive phase where I'm becoming more and more my more authentic self. So being prosperous because you're at your best self and you're expressing your true nature to the world is not the same as having ETs give you money. Now, a while back, when I think it was when I first got back here to Australia a couple months ago, and I had, I crash landed here, and I realized that I had just, I'd lost $8,000 because I sold my car, thinking I was going to get, some money back, or, that my car would have gained in value because the kind of vehicle it was. But as it turned out, I had to come out of pocket $8,000 just to sell my car. And, I had already spent tons of money because travel is really expensive right now. And I got here and I was hurting financially, and I was worried. So I went to my ET friends and I asked, because I didn't know, I just wanted to make sure that I was doing every possible thing that I could. And so I put out a request, and you can do this too. When I met with them, I put out a request and I said, are you guys able to just give me money, since money isn't a real thing and you guys are these powerful light beings? Can you guys just give me money? Can you help me find ways to get money? Can you just make it appear out of nowhere? I was desperate, but again, I was shamelessly asking. What's the worst that could happen? I'll learn what's going on. So because they're so respectful, they answered me, and they answered me that somebody showed up, like a being. In fact, this guy looked human. He looked actually like I didn't see actually colors, but he looked like a European. The way his face was shaped, and he had beard, and the way he was dressed, he looked like like a human. And his response was, he says, you realize we can't get involved in that. We can't get involved in that whole money thing, and creating money and, giving you money. And that was pretty much as far as it went. And I kind of went, yeah, no, I get it. I just thought I'd ask. I got nothing to lose. But it was really wonderful because it was somebody from that I had interacted with who was from one of the higher councils. And so he took my request seriously, but he came and he definitively said, we can't get involved in that. So I was back to doing what I had been teaching myself to do, which was, when I go out there and I follow my highest destiny, my true soul desire, that the universe provides me with money. So, what you learn about ETs is that your understanding of spirituality begins to get more less childish, more mature. So, the Jehovah God, where you go and you pray for everything, God give me this, God give me that, that's a very childish, immature way of interacting. You're not taking any responsibility. And when you interact with ETs, their main message is you don't understand. You're the one that creates everything. You're God. And they've even come to me at times. There's a lot of stuff that I haven't shared publicly, but they've even come to me in that they're like, what are you asking us for? You're the God. You've come down to earth because you're more powerful than we are. We're just here to help you in this 3D fantasy you're in. You're the one that creates it. You're the one that does it. You're the infinite being. So again, don't take that too, three-dimensionally, but the idea is that they're here to help you create money out of thin air. That's your job. They don't do that for a bunch of reasons, but one of them is if they started doing that, then you would never evolve beyond that. You would just constantly go to them like a vending machine, and you would put a quarter in and want them to give you something for nothing, and they're like, no, that's not how, we can't do that. So it wasn't so much that I got the feeling that they didn't have the ability, if they wanted to snap their fingers and have money appear out of nowhere, or snap their fingers and have $1 million show up in my bank account. It's that they can't get involved in that because it gets in the way of the universe functioning, and it gets in the way of you evolving. And it's unnecessary because you can manifest all of the money that you need, but you have to be living your, really striving to be your highest version of yourself. And then everything you need will manifest. Getting famous. So if you think getting famous is, because again, in times when I felt limited and frustrated, again, I got nothing to lose. So I go to them and I ask and I say, hey, can you give me 1 billion followers on YouTube? Can you give me, I didn't get a response that I can remember. But what they did encourage me to do was to intend that myself. So there have been times when I've been meditating and I intend for my channel to grow because it's connected to my desire to share this message with as many people as possible, because I want the earth to evolve. I want people, I care about people. I care about the human race, and I care about the earth. So when I go into that mode and I start intending it, I can feel all of their energies behind me. So you see what I mean? Are you coming from fear or ego, or are you coming from an expansive place? But when I'm coming from that expansive place, I also understand it's not how many people I'm reaching. It doesn't matter. This is what famous people don't understand. This is why, listen, do I want to get specific? I won't get specific on a person, but I'm sure you'll see it out there. This happens a lot with really famous female musicians. A lot of female musicians are famous not only because of their talent, but because of their looks. So they are devalued. They are objectified. So they become famous and rich, and whatever influence they've had, we call people influencers. Whatever influence they've had has come from them, their superficial looks or things like that, which fade. And once that's gone, guess what? Their relevance is gone, and everything. And so you see a lot of pop female artists, when they get to be my age, they've done so much work on themselves that they don't even look human anymore, and then they're made fun of. People make fun of them, and I could name some that are out there now, that are getting to that place. They're in their 50s and 60s, and they've gone to so many robot shops where they've had facial reconstructions, and they don't look like people anymore. Same with men. They're not interested in boosting your ego, and that includes getting famous, unless that's coming from some karmic gift and power that you have. It's not that there aren't going to be people who aren't going to have large followings. It's just that it's not how many people you reach, because if you reach one person with your gift, that one person is an entire universe in and of themselves. And so there is as much value as empowering and shifting and helping one person as there is a billion. So it doesn't matter, you know. So what you can't do with ETs is try and get them to help you to be famous. They're not interested in that. Now here's a frustrating one, and this may change, but what I have had challenges with is getting them to help me accurately predict the future. Like, tomorrow, this exact thing is going to happen. I haven't been able to do that. And I've tried. Like in the beginning, when they gave me the dream and the vision of what I believe is the solar event, which, if that dream is true, is going to happen. But when I've gone and tried to find an exact date for it, I've never been accurate. And this will get into some of the potential pitfalls, which then you run into when you have a strong agenda about something and you're interacting with them. There is the possibility you could misunderstand or project your fantasies onto their communications. And so that is one aspect where I came up with a couple of dates, and this was in the very beginning because I didn't, but those dates have come and gone and those things haven't happened. So, it's like astrology, unless you're an absolute master astrologer, you're not going to be able to say what exactly is going to happen at any given exact moment. What you can do is you can say, here's going to be how the energies are, which will make it more likely, more probable that something along these lines can happen. For a person, you can get an idea of when they're most likely to, get married, when they're most likely to have health issues, when they're most likely to have this be going well for them, but nothing is set in stone. Even you can rise above your astrology by becoming your highest self. So working with ETs so far, I have not been able to work with them and find out the exact date of something. Now, there's other reasons for that. One of them is because our reality is only a probability. It's a shifting landscape. So tomorrow, there's maybe some probabilities that this might happen. It's like predicting the weather. When it comes to surfing, it's all about the conditions. Is there a swell coming? What is the wind doing? The combination and the tide. You've got those three things. Where is the swell coming? How big is the swell? What is the tide doing? And what is the wind doing? And when they all come together, you can have perfect, surfing conditions. And if they're not working in your favor, it'll destroy. Like right now, it's windy as hell. There's a lot of waves out there. But if you go out there and try and surf them with this kind of wind, it'll just be a complete waste of time. So, and lots of times I will look at the forecast, and the forecast will say, the conditions are this, and I show up and they're totally different. Well, it's because weather forecasting is a guess. You're guessing based on the conditions now. Here's what the most likely outcome is going to be, and that's all that weathermen can do. They make educated guesses. And sometimes they're right on the money, and sometimes they're wrong. They'll give you a percentage. There's a 50% chance of rain. What that means is that under the same conditions in previous years, 50% of the time it's rained and 50% of the time it's not. So it's a guess. So you can't get beings who live in a higher dimension, who live in probability states, to tell you exactly what's going to happen. What they can do from their perspective is they can say, this is about to happen. This is going to happen any day now. But remember, from their perspective, any day could be tomorrow or a year or 2 years from now, because they don't live in linear space-time. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to predict exact things happening on exact days and exact times. But I have gotten a lot of downloads about what is about to happen. This and things that that can't be avoided. Like, it is a fact that we can't avoid one of two outcomes. Either if we continue on the path that we're on, the human race will have an extinction event. Period. That's unavoidable. The more likely outcome is that there's, like if we're again doing the weather, there's a 5% chance that there's going to be an extinction event. There's a 95%. I'm not saying this is the percentage. I'm just giving you an example. But we could say there's a 95% chance that there will be an ascension evolution event, which will be instantaneous. So those really are our two options. We can say that. When that's going to happen, the exact day and time, we can't, because the future hasn't happened yet. And we're only living in a probability. But after a while, the probabilities in some cases get so, predictable that you can say this is definitely going to happen. For instance, I lived in Florida for a year. I happened to live there the year where there were 2 hurricanes back to back. The first one was the biggest in recorded history, the largest, most devastating hurricane to hit Florida. I lived through that, and then a month later, another hurricane hit, and from my perspective, by the time both of them hit, they had the same strength level. So for me, I had 2 identical hurricanes coming from 2 different sides of Florida. And I said that, and that was one of the reasons I got out of there. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. Now, this year, there might not be any hurricanes that make landfall. The probability is probably less because you have a year with 2 hurricanes. Probability goes down that you're going to have another one. I don't know. But is there going to be a hurricane hitting Florida? There's a 100% chance that there will be other hurricanes that will hit Florida. 100% chance, it's a definite. But is it going to be next year? I don't know. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. Now that kind of stuff you can get from ETs. ETs will say, listen, this is a definite. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So the solar flash event is, as far as I know, and I'm prepared to be wrong about this too, but as far as I know, the solar flash event is a 100% chance it's going to happen, probably very soon. And it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. All right, so you can't use ETs to accurately predict the future. This next one is my experience. I have a little bit of wiggle room here, and maybe I'll explain why, but I just don't believe that you can channel ETs. I don't believe it. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. I'm not against the idea. In fact, I like the idea of it, but the actual reality of it has never panned out. Not for me. I have no interest in channeling anything. I have no interest in that. But can other people channel the Arcturian Council? I can't say no, but my experience is that they're not channeling anybody. And that comes from, well, first, my experience is that would be like channeling my next door neighbor. Why would I do that? You want to talk to him? He's next door. Go and knock on his door. Here's his phone number. Give him a call. Why would I channel him for you? Can I tell you what he told me to tell you? Yeah. Can I tell you what he said in the past? Yeah. But can I channel him? Why in the hell would I do that? And why would you want me to do that? So when it comes to channeling ETs, so that's my practical experience, is that they don't do that because they're individuals and they interact with you on an individual level. And the idea of me channeling ETs for an audience is just silly. There's another reason behind it that I don't like about it, and I think it's the same reason why they don't do it either, is because channeling ETs it puts you in a completely different ego state. For the person who is the channeler, they become somebody special. So their narcissistic ego, I'm the channeler of the Arcturian Council, I'm the channel of Zothar the Magnificent, and I am here to tell you. It's just ridiculous. And it puts the channeler into an ego state where they're special. They're the only ones. I've been chosen by this being, and this being is going to speak through me, which then that person then becomes the ET, and so it's this big ego thing. it's devaluing for the audience. Now, the audience doesn't realize it, but they're devaluing themselves in the same way that people that worship Jehovah devalue themselves when they prostrate themselves on the ground and I am nothing and God is everything. You're devaluing yourself, because that's not how it works. So it's coming from a place of victimization, a passive place, needing to have somebody else speak from some higher perspective, and it creates this whole pseudo-religious, nonsensical place that the bottom line is, forget about it being nonsensical. It doesn't work because it raises the narcissistic ego of the channel, whether they like it or not, and that is devaluing. They become an object. The channeler is objectified. Their only value to the audience is, you're the one that can give me what I want, which is I want you to channel those beings and make me feel special. You know, so it's devaluation, it's objectification. You're, turning somebody into an object. And it's devaluing for the audience because it comes from a place of limitation. I'm not worthy to talk directly with Zothar the Magnificent. I'm not worthy enough. I don't have the gift. So this is one of the reasons I don't think you can channel ETs. I don't think it happens. I'm open to be wrong about it, but I just don't think it's true. You know, there have been famous ones, Bashar. I've made videos about Bashar. And I've never really said that Bashar channels ETs. What I like about Bashar, or whatever the guy's name is who supposedly channels him, is that he says a lot of really good things, but they're things that any good spiritual teacher would say. It's devaluing to him because he's saying, I'm not the one that has the ability to figure this basic stuff out. How to live your life and how to manifest good things, or basic things any real teacher will be able to know. But it devalues him and it devalues the audience. And so I don't believe that he's doing that, but I agree with a lot of the things that he says. But he doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need the whole thing. Now, if you want to sit in a meditative posture so you can have access to your whole brain and I'm happy to do that. But own it. You're the one, if you're channeling it, you're doing the same thing that everybody in the world does, which is you're tapping into the quantum field of information. And you can use your own brain, you can use your own voice, you can use your own patterns of speech, and there's no need to pretend that it's coming from somewhere else. That's simply showmanship for immature people that you can take advantage of. They'll pay you money if they think that you have a special ability they don't have. But the truth is, all teachers, all they do is they tap into the quantum field and they share that information. And the idea is that you can do the same. Sure, you want to learn from a teacher? Great, learn from them and then get to the place where you're able to do that. As long as you've got the prophet, the channeler, that never changes. The student is always less than and the teacher is always above. And that, to me, is not how the universe flows. So I don't think people channel ETs. I don't think that's real. One of the things you can't do is you cannot profit from your interaction with ETs. I know this personally. There was one time where I didn't know, and again, I don't have any shame asking. I will ask them anything that comes to my mind because I want to understand how this new universe, my interaction with them, having my reality completely shattered was, well, the universe is not at all what I thought. So then since I don't know, I have to educate myself. I'm going to start from scratch. So at one point, I was feeling stuck. My channel was feeling stuck. I was feeling challenged financially, personally, and I was in a state where I wasn't feeling too positive about my life. It was a short thing. It happens to me all the time. I go up and down. I have good days and bad days. I was having a bad day. And so I was worried, and my thought was I need to get more people on the channel, which means I need to have something that's going to get a viral video out there. So I asked them, and I said, hey, can you tell me I forget what the exact was, but I wanted to know the inner workings of how they're interacting with the earth and with the uh, the elite, and the things that they're doing. And I said, can you give me inside information? I'll put it on my channel. And they came back. I waited. They, I don't know, sent the question out there, and I waited. And then somebody came back and said, your request has been denied because you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're doing it to profit from this, and also that information is very powerful, and you're getting very close to learning a lot of things. And there are some things we don't want the world to know yet because it's not helpful. And but the big thing that hit me was them saying, you're doing it to profit from it, and we're not here to do that. I was that hurt my feelings for a couple of days. I won't lie to you, but I learned something. Again, they're not butlers or trained monkeys, and they're very serious about the specific information that they share with you. And they only share with you information that empowers you and empowers others. Now, this is my personal thing here. What you can't do with ET communications is use it to indulge in escapism. So you can't use it like drugs. So now we can get into the potential pitfalls. So by pitfall, I mean your personal experience of something that's not so pleasant. Like, getting told no. And when I ask for something and I get told no, because it's such a powerful, intimate experience, I usually respond from a really deep place of hurt. I get hurt by that. But then when I look at it, I realize, well, the one thing that, because the first time that happened and they said, no, we're not going to tell you that. And when, like that, because you're going to use it for your own personal gain. I took that as I was really dressed down like they had. But the truth is that they could have just chosen not to respond. A lot of times they just don't respond to requests and questions. What I didn't realize was that I was very valuable to them. I was so valuable to them that, a very high level being came and said no to me. And that the real message was, you're really important. And every request we take seriously. It means we thought about it and we came to the realization that it's not a good idea. So we're coming back to you. We're giving you the respect to come back to you and say, in this case, we're going to say no to you. And then I realized how special I was and what tremendous respect they were giving me by even responding to that ridiculous question. That they treated me with real respect by doing that. So again, a lot of people, when I come to you and I say things you don't like hearing, if I take the time to point out to you, where I see you at, it's not a put down. It means that I value you, and my job is to give you information that will help you. So that's what they did for me. So I experience the same stuff you guys do when I'm, harsh with you. All right, so that's a pitfall, is that interaction with ETs, as I said before, is going to damage your narcissistic ego, and that can feel traumatic. So be prepared. The people I've worked with, I've got a couple in mind who have absolutely just blossomed. They've gone from where they were, which was in a much less prosperous, healthy space, to where they are now. Their life is profoundly different, like night and day. And it's a direct result of interacting with ETs. And what's interesting is that, like me, some of them, they will have these really powerful, blissful interactions of experiencing unconditional love. And then there will be a couple of days where they will just be struggling with their sanity. And what's really happening is they're struggling. They're letting go of their three-dimensional self. They're dying to themselves, and it's challenging and traumatic. But then afterwards, when they come out of that shamanic awakening, they're much happier, much healthier, and they come up with these great business ideas, and they start going in really powerful directions. So the pitfall is that if you get a really powerful experience, you might have a few days where you're going to feel, some painful stuff. But so that's a potential pitfall, even though it works out beneficially. Here's a big one: the potential for misunderstanding higher dimensional concepts. Now, I've had some time with this one, so I have, an addendum to it. But what was happening for me, and I'll give you one experience that I had. This was right after I had done, looking back on it, a very selfless thing. I wasn't thinking about, the morality of it when I did it. I was just doing what I felt like I wanted to do. But I came online and I led people in an interdimensional meditation where we went to the sun and we sent love energy to the earth to help the earth shift up to 5D. And it was a powerful experience. And then afterwards, my ET friends came back to me. I mean, they didn't even call me into a meditative state. They just came back to me, and the whole universe was just like singing with gratitude. They were like, thank you so much. And the feelings of love that were just over, they were so grateful that I did that. I mean, I was like, I didn't do it for that reason, but wow, and it taught me a lot. It's because, they benefit, like you and I benefit. We all benefit when anybody does any act from their true soul, and it's a selfless, giving, loving act. Every being in the universe, whether it's the highest God that exists or the lowliest little, microbe, every single being benefits from that. And they were thanking me, just like it was an overwhelming experience. It was like, and there was like thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And if I could hear it, there would have been just this deafening roar of thanking me. It was just unbelievable. And so after that, should I be telling this? I'm going to go ahead and tell it. So after that, it had been, I don't know, it'd been a few days at least, maybe even a week. As I was lying in bed, I think I was getting ready to go to sleep. I don't remember if I was doing interdimensional meditation or not, but I was lying in bed getting ready at some point in a meditative state, and a being showed up. It was a cheeky, female being showed up, and she said, congratulations, you're going to be receiving an upgrade. I didn't know what she was talking about. We're going to give you an upgrade. Now, again, here's the problem. My brain is interpreting a telepathic message from a being in a higher dimension. So my brain interpreted it as an upgrade. So I didn't know what that was, and I must have had a confused look on my energetic body face, because she said, now say thank you. And I said, thank you. And then she skedaddled off. And then this energy came into my room that was from a very high dimension. And I'm not going to tell you what that being said, because again, I don't think it serves any purpose. But this being basically gave me a title. A very grandiose title. It would be sort of like, in the Game of Thrones, if somebody comes in and says, I've decided to make you Archduke of the land of such and such. It'd be like that, but even more grandiose. And so the being came in and gave me this title, and every thought, every concept, every word that came into my brain had this energy behind it that was just massive. And of course it was blissful and wonderful, but it was unbelievably huge, and it was a little traumatic because, the energy itself was expanding me beyond my current limitations, which is again the whole point of it. And so that hit me, and I came out of that and I said, what was that all about? And then I was struggling, trying to understand, because again, my brain took that higher dimensional concept and had to squish it down into, 3D English, American English words that I could understand. And it was so huge and so grandiose, my false humility just broke, and I couldn't tolerate it for a couple of days. In fact, my body was out of alignment for a couple of days because energetically, my psyche, my ego couldn't tolerate it. And I had to really learn how to just let go. And this was when I learned, the most powerful thing I've learned to do with interacting with ETs is whatever they tell me, I take it at face value. I don't try and figure it out because it's coming from another dimension. I'm not going to be able to figure it out. I don't try and figure it out. I believe them. I take them at face value, and then I don't get attached to it. I just don't attach anything. I don't have any attachment to if they say you're going to be, let's say, for example, they say you're going to be really popular, you're going to be really successful. Let's say they come and tell you that. Now, if I become attached to that and I start thinking about, I really want people to like me, then I'm going to be in trouble because that higher dimensional concept and my 3D concept are not going to fit well, and I'm going to end up all screwed up about that. So just to keep my sanity through this process, I have learned to do that. Whatever they tell me, I completely believe it. And then when I'm back in my 3D body, I just go, oh, that's interesting. And I don't attach. I don't know what that means. I don't need to know. It's whatever it is whatever it is. And I'm not going to spend any time trying to figure it out. It's just, it is what it is. So that's a big potential because remember, on an earthly level, we've got, in 3D, we've got 8 physical reference points. There's 4 on the top and 4 on the bottom. It makes a box. You live in a box, that's the 3rd dimension. All of your movements are going to happen inside that box. There's 8 potential reference points. In the 4th dimension, just going up 1 dimension, it doubles. It goes from 4 to 16. We can't comprehend that. How can you move in a 16-dimensional reference point? I have no idea. We can't do it. It's like asking a 2-dimensional person to imagine up and down. Like, what is that? What is that? I don't know what that is. I can't possibly know. So bear in mind, their emotions and their concepts are coming from these higher perspectives. And when you get, like, I don't know where that being was from, but he was from some really high dimension, and he showed up and he just said one word and it just, and every piece of me couldn't tolerate it. Now, at the time, I actually got worried, and I even said, you guys can't do that to me. You're going to destroy me. And there was even some beings that came back and said, sorry that you went through that. We're going to do some work to help calm that down. And then I started thinking, oh, wait, but don't stop giving me that stuff. I've had enough time. That was months ago. And I've had enough time that I can now am able to tolerate it, the title that was given to me. I've been able to expand into it more, and I'm able to comprehend it in my 3rd dimensional state without it destroying me. And I'm understanding the difference between who I am when I'm in my astral body and, the limitations of being 3D, and connecting the two. That I'm aware that in my higher dimensional state, I'm much more massive than I am in my 3D state. And it's not, one cancels out the other. You can be both at the same time. So I'm able to expand more into it. But that is a real thing that might happen. When a higher dimensional being comes from 6, 7, 8, 9th dimension, and they just say hello, their experience of the concept of hello is going to be bigger than anything in 3D, and you'll feel it. So you'll have to learn how to expand into that. But there is a potential for totally misunderstanding. Again, the word that I use, if I were to tell you the English phrase that came into my head with the title that was given to me, you would laugh. You'd go, that's just preposterous. But it's not preposterous on higher dimensional levels. It's preposterous in 3D. So that's the miscommunication. Miscommunication is you've got your limited human brain that only has so much vocabulary, and it has a 3D vocabulary. It doesn't understand 5D vocabulary. But you can energetically expand into it. And so now I look back on it and I'm still expanding from that, because again, that being is not stuck in 3D space-time. That pronouncement, that upgrade didn't just happen on that day back, I think it was probably August. It didn't happen then. It's still happening now. The reverberations from that are going to continue to expand for as long as I'm alive. That's the nature of not being stuck in the third dimension. So the other pitfall is, again, on the other side of this, is projecting your own unconscious fantasies. And I already talked about that because, when they told me the solar wave was coming, and I even asked them, I said, what's going to be like? And they said, it's a solar wave event that's going to continuously hit the earth, giving it love. And so they told me exactly what it was. And then I said, what day? Tell me when. And then I was straining to try and hear. And so what was happening is I was making up days in my head. So when you're getting telepathic messages, when they've stopped talking, your brain can still talk. And so you'll end up speaking for them. And this has happened. I've seen this happen with others as well as with me. People will take their attachments. You're deeply attached to them telling you something you want to hear, and you will tell yourself something and then you'll convince yourself it came from them and it didn't. Or you misheard it, or you warped it or something. So that's a very real thing. So this is why it's important to not have any attachment to, wanting them to tell you something, which is again why I don't believe in channeling, because channelers have an agenda. They need to say something that their listeners are going to want to hear. Same as phone psychics. They're going to have to say something that the customer's going to want to hear, or they won't make any money. So you can't have an agenda. So when you have an agenda, the pitfall is that you're going to project your own fantasies on a communication. You're either going to take a communication and warp it or add on to it or change it, or there will just be silence, and you will fill the silence in with your own fantasy, and you'll tell yourself that's what an ET told you. So that's a real thing. You'll have to learn how to deal with that, and you'll have to learn how to come from your authentic self without any attachment, and that's a process. I've already talked about it. There's a short-lived ego death trauma. So there are times when you get really powerful, really even loving experiences. You might have, sort of a borderline narcissist reaction where you'll respond negatively to it, and you'll think that they're harming you, or you'll get paranoid, or you'll, think, why are they saying this to me? Who are they? Or you will just go through periods of all kinds of negative feelings coming up. It's a purging. That's a real thing, and I'm calling that an ego death trauma. Short-lived. But when you come out of it, like when you puke up bad fish, afterwards you feel so much better. Higher dimensions are not fixed in one timeline. This deserves a whole video, but I'll briefly talk about it. Higher dimensions, when I've interacted with beings that were telling me something that was actually being told to me in multiple points in my life. So there was some things that I remember happening when I was 7 years old. I remember another one that happened when I was 18. And looking back on it now, it was the same moment. But it was spread over multiple points in time. And I was told something most recently. Who knows, maybe I'll get told something again in the future. But it was told to me then, and it was bending me in all kinds of ways. And I realized and I could sense that my 7-year-old self and my 18-year-old self, that this was the same message that was being sort of split into 3 different points in time in my life. That was crazy. I'm still, having a whoa experience from that one. So they're not fixed in one point in time. I'll just let you chew on that. Here's the thing. You must take full responsibility to change your own reality. As we were talking about earlier, they're not trained monkeys, and they're not Jehovah. You don't pray to them, say, give me this and do that. They're like, wait a second. The whole point is that you do it. You're a probability. You live in a probability state. You take responsibility. You raise your vibration. You become the God that you are, and you fix your reality. That's your job. So that could be a pitfall for you if you're going to have to raise yourself up and take full responsibility. A lot of victims don't like doing that. So you can't be a victim and interact with ETs. It doesn't work. It's again another reason why ETs are not the ones who are abducting and experimenting, because they will never do anything to harm you or victimize you in any way. So that would never even come to their mind. The ultimate benefits of all of it is that every single person who does interdimensional meditation, interacting with ETs, you will become healthier, happier, and more prosperous. Even if you go through some challenging experiences, the end result is that there isn't one person who's done this whose life hasn't gotten better, not one. Which is, again, different from somebody who doesn't do initiated. Taking ayahuasca, for example, isn't a self-initiated connection with higher dimensional beings. When you take ayahuasca, you're forcing the issue. People who do, like lots of DMT, will say that when they take DMT, the beings will go, "Oh my God, there you are." In other words, you showed up at their house unannounced. They're going to give you an experience, but it's not necessarily something that really impacts your life, because it wasn't an initiated two-way street. When you initiate contact with higher dimensional beings, it creates a two-way interconnection that never goes away. And you will be empowered, you will become healthier, happier, and more prosperous. So that's it. That was a long video, but I wanted to get those points out. I hope that helps you. If you want to learn more about this yourself, go to thunderwizard.com and subscribe to the interdimensional meditation course. I actually suggest that you just go ahead and subscribe to the Lightning Qigong. It's $1 more, and you get access to many more videos. My books, Interdimensional Revolution and Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth, can be found on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. You can go to audiobooks.thunderwizard.com. If you're not in the US and you go to audiobooks, click on the little link up top that takes you to the US site, and then you'll see my page. Courses.thunderwizard.com. All of these things are here for you, and of course all the free channels. Free videos on the channel. Learn how to search within my channel through the playlists. And there you go, my friends. I'll see you soon. I'll be back in another place in a few days, and then I'll be able to do live streams again because I'll have better internet. It takes me about sometimes 4 hours just to upload a video, so that's why I'm not doing live streams anymore. All right, that's it, my friends. I wish you guys all the best, and I will see you guys all next time. Take care.